Hello, everyone. How's the energy? Still high energy? Okay. I need everyone to start shuffling into their seats so we can get started with the rest of our program. Please, those in the back, don't make me pull out my binoculars. I'll describe you in details. Details you've never imagined being used. Please take your seats. If your friend, your comrade, your colleague, your partner, your confidant, your family member, your relative, your whoever is not here but has to be here, make a phone call, send a text, send a kite, send a dove, I don't know, a pigeon, carrier pigeon. Bring them here. Did someone say that's embarrassing? Like they're embarrassed by me. Thank you, thank you. Please, everyone, go ahead and get seated. The last but not least plenary of tonight. Up, up with liberation. Down, down with occupation. Damn, that's weak, y'all. That's weak. Up, up with liberation. Down, down with occupation. Up with liberation. Down, down with occupation. Up with liberation. Down, down with occupation. Fight the power, turn the tide. Fight the power, turn the tide. Rise up for Palestine. Rise up for Palestine. Fight the power, turn the tide. Rise up for Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free, free Palestine. We want justice, you say how? End the siege on Gaza now. We want justice, you say how? End the ethnic cleansing now. Gaza, Gaza, held high. Palestine will never die. Gaza, Gaza, head held high. We are all by your side. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Yemen, Yemen, make us proud. Turn another ship around. Yemen, Yemen, make us proud. Turn another ship around. Lebanon, make us proud. Bring the occupation down. Lebanon, make us proud. Bring the occupation down. Gaza, Gaza, make us proud.
Gaza, Gaza, make us proud. Tear this occupation down. Tear this occupation down. Gaza called, Yemen answered. All Israeli ships are cancelled. Gaza called, Yemen answered. All Israeli ships are cancelled. And free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free, free Palestine. Free, free, free Palestine. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. From the sea to the river. Palestine will live forever. Free, free Palestine. Free, free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free, free Palestine. Justice is our demand. Justice is our demand. No peace on stolen land. No peace on stolen land. Justice is our demand. No peace on stolen land. Justice is our demand. No peace on stolen land. Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Intifada! Viva, viva Intifada! Viva, viva Intifada! Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina! From the belly of the beast! From the belly of the beast! No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace! We will honor all our martyrs! All the children, sons and daughters! We will honor all our martyrs! All the parents, mothers, fathers! Free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! One solution! 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 What's up, y'all? And here I was, worried about the energy. Lessons learned. Another series of accumulation of experience to teach me that the energy in this crowd, in this room, is the flame that keeps our movement alive. And now it's time to add fuel to that fire. So we're going to transition to our next session, and it's the last plenary of the night, and it's titled Zionism and US Imperialism. And this is an extremely important topic as of all the topics that we've done up until this point. But obviously, we're in the belly of the beast. We're in the heart of US empire. And the relationship between Zionism and US imperialism is an important relationship for us to understand in a deep way. Because ultimately, the US government, the West more broadly, is the only reason this state, the Zionist state, continues to exist. If it wasn't for US imperialism, this war would have ended long time ago. In fact, this war probably would have never even begun. And so for us, in this conference, the people who put together the program, there's a lot of misunderstanding that we've seen about the relationship between US imperialism and Zionism. And there's a lot that you'll hear from the panelists that seek to clarify the true nature of this relationship. Because in order for us to actually undermine, disrupt this dynamic, we have to understand the actual character, the true character of this dynamic. And so, I want the panelists to come on. I'm going to pass the microphone in a moment to Layan Flahan. Layan will be joining us as the moderator. We'll introduce the panelists and we'll carry the discussion for the night. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome, good evening. Welcome to the final plenary of our second day of the People's Conference for Palestine. I am honored to be here with all of you and to be having this very important discussion on Zionism and US imperialism. And most importantly, honored to be in this convening with you, which I know is not like any normal convening. The movement has convened us. We are brought here together by shared struggle for over 8 months and even longer than that. And this discussion that we're going to have today is one of political, strategic importance. Just a month ago, this movement, this very same movement that's brought us all in the room together, created such a political crisis for Biden and the White House that he actually went in public and said that the invasion of Rafah would actually be his red line, and that he would consider stopping the shipments of weapons to the State of Israel and the Zionist project that is being used to kill and massacre every single day. Now we are in 2 weeks of the invasion of Rafah, and it has expanded again to an invasion of the entire occupied Gaza territory, and Biden's red line has gone missing. Not only did he not remember his own red line, he has sent more billions of dollars of military weapons that are being used as we speak to increase the number of martyrs unimaginably, already over 40,000 that have been taken by this shared genocide. Now, we don't have to ask about Biden's red line. We are not waiting for his red line. We have already created the red line. And for us, our red line is the genocide, is the entire occupation, and is US imperialism's role in occupying massacring, exploiting the entire world. But it is important for us to ask and to investigate, why is it that there are no red lines for the White House when it comes to Zionism? Why is it that there is never a red line for the US government when it comes to the apartheid state of Israel and the occupation of Palestine? We ask this question because we are committed, and we are committed every day to not just struggling and showing our solidarity with the Palestinian people, but for generating a movement that is going to create enough political pressure on the US system to change it and for it to answer to our demands. So to help us answer this question and to better understand the relationship, the shared project of US imperialism and Zionism, we have an incredible panel with us today. I'd like to introduce all of them first, and then I will pass the word to them each so we can hear their perspective and their analysis. I have Richard Becker. Richard Becker is a longtime anti-war activist, an organizer in solidarity with the Palestinian liberation struggle, and he is the author of Palestine, Israel, and the US Empire. I have Sarah Kirshner. She is an organizer and the co-founder of the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network, established in 2007. We also have with us Dr. Rabab Abdulhadi. A Palestinian scholar, activist, educator, editor, and an academic director. She is the founding director and senior scholar of the Arab and Muslim Ethnicities and Diaspora Studies program at San Francisco State University, and the head of the Oral History Project Teaching Palestine. And Yara Shufani. A PhD student at York University and an organizer with the Palestinian Youth Movement. So I'd like to start by passing the microphone off to Richard Becker to get the conversation going.
Thank you very much, Leon. This is really amazing. This is an amazing conference, unlike any that I have seen in more than 4 decades of organizing for Palestine. Something has changed. Something profoundly different is going on today than was going on just 8 months ago. And it's really, really, I think, a tribute to all of you who are here today that you have joined in this movement, along with thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of our sisters and brothers all over the world. I have just a few minutes, so I want to just talk about a little bit about the mythological history of Zionism in the State of Israel, and then a little bit about why the U.S. gives the kind of support it does to the State of Israel. You know, when the Zionist movement started, not thousands of years ago, but really marked its entrance in the world at the 1897 World Zionist Congress, it was a very contradictory movement. It was, on the one hand, a reaction to very real anti-Semitism in large parts of Europe and the United States, although among the politically active Jewish people, it was a small minority and it was not viewed generally well, but that was one aspect. But on the other hand, it was from the beginning a colonial project. And how do we know it was a colonial project from the beginning? Because their leaders said so. Theodore Herzl, because it is something colonial, he writes to Cecil Rhodes, the architect of British colonialism in Africa. But there was another bigger contradiction that that movement had, and that was that it didn't have an army or a navy. It didn't have land on which it could construct an army and a navy. And this is very significant, and very significant right down till today, that in order for their project to go forward, they had to find a sponsor. They had to find a sponsor which had the kind of force and the organized violence to be able to accomplish a colonial objective. And they went to the Russian Empire and the German Empire and the Ottoman Empire. And finally, it was the British Empire that 20 years after the First World Zionist Congress in 1897 agreed in the form of the Balfour Declaration. How many people here know what the Balfour Declaration is? I would say this: the struggle is a great educator, the best educator. And so it was in 1917 that the Balfour Declaration came about. And the Balfour Declaration, I think, is important to see, not just as the Balfour Declaration, but as part of the Sykes-Picot, or connected to the Sykes-Picot Agreement, a deceptive, secret agreement signed between Britain and France. Britain had promised the Arab people they would support their having a homeland if they fought on their side against the Ottoman Empire in World War I. But all along, they were plotting on how they would cut up the Middle East. And the borders of the modern Middle East come from the Sykes-Picot Agreement, but included in the Sykes-Picot Agreement when it became the mandate at the League of Nations was the Balfour Declaration as well. So the Balfour Declaration, which promised the support of the British Empire, then the greatest empire in the world, greatest in the sense of its violence, that empire was behind this project, and it was only because they got this project, the support of the British Empire, that the Zionist project went anywhere at all. It could not have succeeded. It could not have succeeded without imperialism. There's no way that it could have possibly been able to achieve what it did achieve. It was under the protection of the British government that hundreds of thousands of settlers traveled from Europe and from the Americas, but mostly from Europe, to become the settlers who would later become, through violence, the state of Israel. So it was the British who were the first imperialists who played the critical role in supporting the Zionist project. And after they pulled out in 1948, after the illegal, illegitimate vote at the United Nations to partition the Mandate of Palestine, as it was called, it was the French Empire that came in. And the French Empire that provided the arms. And the French Empire, the French that provided Israel with the atomic bomb. That's right. And it was Israel, together with France and Britain, that invaded Egypt in 1956. You know, there's a story that goes along here that it's like war after war after war when you talk about the state of Israel. It's a warfare state. And they plotted together to overthrow the Nasser government at a time when President Gamal Abdel Nasser was the leader of the Arab national movement, seen as such in the world. And they invaded. They created a story and used it to invade Egypt. But the U.S. and the USSR, for their own separate reasons I'm not going to talk about, forced that to end. But 11 years later came the sneak attack, the surprise attack, another one on Egypt and Syria and Jordan by the Israeli military. A sneak attack that destroyed their air forces. And it was because of that attack that the U.S. government made the decision to now become the sponsor, replacing France, and became the sponsor. And they said, Gerald Ford, who would later be president but was then in Congress, said, it looks like Israel has done the job for us. So it's been based on war and conflict and imperialism and intervention that we have seen this go from 1897 and particularly from World War I up until the present time. And today, the U.S. supports Israel. And why does the U.S. support Israel in the way that it does? Why these billions and billions of dollars every year to a country that has a living standard for most of the people kind of like Western Europe? Is it because really the pro-Israeli lobby in the U.S.? Well, we have no question about if you wave some money in front of our representatives, so-called, in Congress, they'll follow you anywhere. So it's not that it's unimportant, but there's something more fundamental about this. That really, Israel has served the purposes of whichever country supported Israel. And that goes back to the revolution of 1936 to 39 in Palestine. It goes to 1956 in Egypt. And it goes up until today when we have seen over the years since the U.S. became the main sponsor, the intervention of, which is never discussed in the media here, the mass media like so much else, but Israel was a big supporter of South Africa. And like France gave the atomic bomb to Israel, Israel gave the atomic bomb to South Africa in 1979. It supported the government of Rhodesia, as it used to be called. It supported the most reactionary elements all over the world. In 1983, when the Congress of the United States cut off aid to Guatemala, when it became clear and couldn't be denied that genocide was taking place there against the Mayan people, who came in and took the place of that aid and the trainers? It was Israel. It was Israel who intervened after the fascist coup in Chile. And it has continued to go on and on. In 1982, the invasion of Lebanon that took place. We've seen this over and over and over again. But where the impact of Israel has been the most detrimental, the most dangerous, the most destructive, has been in the Middle East itself, where none of the countries that surround that illegitimate state, none of them can think about taking any action without having to contemplate what will the reaction of Israel be to it. So this is the role that Washington wants. This is the role that Washington sees as the reason to give this kind of aid to the state of Israel. And Israel, from the point of view of the Pentagon and the White House, it may be a relatively small state, but it's a very big military base. And it is an integral part of the U.S. strategy of global domination. And I just want to mention one other thing. In our book, Palestine, Israel, and the U.S. Empire, we reprinted a pamphlet from 1969 by a great Egyptian historian named Abdul Wahab al-Masiri. And at the end, and at the end of his book, at the end of this pamphlet that he wrote, that you can't really find it anymore, but we did reprint it. And at the end of it, he recounts how in 1968, he's at Rutgers University teaching. And at Rutgers, he talks to a student from what was then called the Mapam Party, which was the so-called peace party. They don't really need peace parties in Israel anymore. Fake peace parties were part of the past. And he says to him, why is Israel supporting the U.S. in Vietnam? Because they didn't send troops, but they supported them in many ways. And the student from the Mapam Party said, Israel must defend itself. What did he mean by that? That he thought Vietnam was about to invade Israel? No, it really meant that Israel must be with its sponsor. In all cases, in all instances, it must be with its sponsor and support its sponsor. And I think that shows this relationship, what the relationship really is, the relationship that the Palestinians are fighting against, the relationship that we have to fight against too. And in the coming weeks and months and years that lie ahead of us, I would just say this in closing, that we must maintain the kind of steadfastness. We take that lesson from the Palestinians, and we will continue the struggle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. You brought us in just a few minutes through over a century of history and grounding to understand the world we're living in today. I highly recommend, if you haven't already, picking up a copy of Richard's book, Palestine, Israel, and the U.S. Empire. It gives a lot more of this kind of clear and concise analysis to understand the true nature of this relationship between imperialism and Zionism. And to continue the discussion, I would like to pass it on to Sarah.
Okay. Good evening. It's very fortifying to be here with you all. This has been a marathon of 8 months, but for many of us, a lifelong struggle to dismantle Zionism in the state of Israel. The International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network approaches the work first and foremost following the demands for the full liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea. And we stand in our own history when we do that. We stand in our own history of resistance to genocide, including the right to resist and armed resistance as part of that history. And in that way, we are unequivocally with the resistance in Palestine. So our participation in the movement, the global movement for anti-Zionism, is of course, first and foremost for the liberation of Palestine. But we also understand, as Richard laid out, that Palestine is the front of a crucial struggle in the world. It is a struggle against mass exploitation of resources. It is a struggle against the history of racial apartheid. It is a struggle against settler colonialism. It is crucial to the future of humanity and the very survival of the planet that we dismantle Zionism. And so, as Jews with our own history that stand on part of the legacy of Jewish history of participation in our own and collective liberation, we see ourselves not as unique, but as part of a broader anti-Zionist force. We are seeing a historic crack. Many people have spoken to it in the propaganda and the false narrative of Zionism. There is no going back. From here, Israel is going to fall. As anti-Zionists, we have all gone from different moments of being marginalized to being at the center of global struggle. And in this country, Palestine is understood as a front of anti-racist struggle alongside Black liberation and indigenous sovereignty. The next generation will understand that there is no anti-racist struggle or anti-imperialist struggle without anti-Zionism. And that also goes for the next generation of Jewish people who will be born in this country and globally. So I want to make a few points building off of what Richard talked about. Another defining feature of the empires that Zionists courted was that they were all anti-Semitic. Zionism is really the most anti-Semitic movement and partners with the most anti-Semitic regimes and parties. That includes white supremacist organizations in this country, Proud Boys, Steve Bannon, the Trump regime. It also includes Christian Zionists, who are the largest Zionist population in the United States. And so, while I absolutely agree with Richard that Israel is central to the U.S. allied strategy around economic and political power in the region, but also globally, I also feel that Israel is in and of itself a global force and power. And it does a job not only for the United States, but over time and place for repressive regimes across the world. Richard mentioned a few, I'd like to add a few more. Israel has armed almost every side of every ethnic conflict in Africa based on the colonial history of dividing people. It has stood with and advanced South Africa historically until South Africa fell. And it is now building alliances with India and China, two of the largest purchasers of Israeli arms. It is an economy built on the field testing of weapons, surveillance, and strategies of repression on Palestinian people. Like the US has built that on indigenous and black people in this country, like now Israel is arming Modi to do in Kashmir and other places. This is a fundamental pillar of the Israeli economy, and it is a job that Israel does with the United States all over the world. In Guatemala, it brought the torched earth policy. It's both technology, it's surveillance, it is the contract with Google Nimbus that No Tech for Genocide is countering. They do a job together. So what does this mean for us? I mean, as people have spoken about, it goes back to the character of the Zionist movement, which was very much a ruling class white movement of European Jews who wanted state power, who wanted access to that power and capital. And so for our movement, it feels very important that we recognize that, as Richard said, it has never had, for the Zionists, for the US and its allies, it has never had anything to do with Jewish safety. Has never had anything to do with valuing Jewish life, and of course it has nothing to do with valuing any life or the actual survival of this planet. So when we talk about what it means to build from here, I want to go back to what Lotta spoke about this afternoon. What this implies is that the battle against Zionism has to be one of joint struggle. Because while the leadership comes from resistance in Palestine, we all have a vested stake in the dismantling of Zionism. We have an invested stake in the way that the Israeli military trains police in this country and population control. We have a vested stake in the way that parastatal organizations like the Jewish National Fund go out and train other people in resource management, AKA, how do you take the resources that belong to someone else and control them so that you benefit from those resources? So, again, joint struggle, yes, it is a moral imperative. Our mutual solidarity and collective struggle together is a principle. It is also practical. We cannot win the many things we need to win to turn the ship from the histories of not only colonialism and genocide, but the very existence of humanity in this planet depends on our ability to come together and defeat Zionism as part of struggles for abolition, as part of struggles against police violence, as part of environmental justice. Very soon in this country, anti-Zionism has to be part of broader anti-fascist formations. We know the Zionists have and will continue to collaborate with other fascists, with white nationalists in this country. We have to work together to build those coalitions that are about all of us, that Palestine is central to, but Palestine is not alone in needing to combat it. And so with that, I just want to speak a little bit to, and of course BDS is a very big part of this. Okay, I got 2 minutes. So I want to lift up, Lotta talked about Block the Boat, some of the experiments we've done across the world. We've been involved through our research on Israel's worldwide role in repression. We've been involved in campaigns to break contracts and push out weapon manufacturers who are profiting on genocide and on the long-term occupation of Palestine. That includes Elbit in the UK, working with PAL Action. It includes Stop Urban Shield, the largest expo of police training and exchanges across militaries and police. It includes efforts to stop states from contracting with Israel and also Zionist security businesses, Zionist security strategy organizations, and surveillance companies in order to divest, not just from Israel, but from Zionism. It also means we need to prepare for strategic backlash. They are overreaching. When I heard the students speak earlier today, they are overreaching. We need to use their backlash against them. We need to protect each other, but we also need to use their backlash against them to expose them and to show that what they're doing in Palestine, they are bringing here, and that the US and Israel are doing that together. And then I want to just speak to anti-Zionist Jews who are here or elsewhere. We have to keep decentering the conversation of Jewish safety. We have a responsibility to stop the weaponization of anti-Semitism. It is a betrayal of our history. It is itself anti-Semitism because it allows these governments to claim Jewish safety when really all they care about is their own agenda. But that is not the center of anti-Zionist struggle. The center of anti-Zionist struggle is the dismantling of it. And so, as Jewish people who are committed to collective liberation, there is one choice, and we invite you to join us in dismantling Zionism before it continues to do so much damage, not only in Palestine, but all over the world. That is not our legacy, and what we need to do is come together and create a different legacy in solidarity with our anti-Zionist brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your clarifying comments, and in particular, for setting the record straight about the true definition of both anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism and our task going forward. Next, I am very pleased to pass the microphone to Dr. Rabab Abdulhadi.
Okay, yeah. Hi. First, I want to begin by acknowledging that we are again on Anishinaabe people's indigenous land, and affirm that for us and for indigenous people everywhere, including the Palestinian people, and demand return, repatriation, rematriation, abolition, and reparations. Secondly, I want to honor all the fallen, including the martyrs. Today we had the Sana Daqqa. We remembered the martyr Walid Daqqa. We remember all the martyrs who have fallen in the march for freedom. And Walid Daqqa, Just so we are also international. Somebody spoke about international. I think it was Lara this morning. This was also the same case for many other people, like Dr. Albizu Campos, for example, in Puerto Rico. So these experiences happen all the time. So abolition is really important for us to emphasize. Third, and I also hate to speak about some personal things, but today is my birthday. Don't say happy birthday. Please, I hate it. Okay. The reason I'm saying that is because I hated my birthday. Because my birthday was the anniversary of the Jordanian monarchy ascendance to power. So I hated it all the time I grew up. And actually it does have to do with where we're at now, because Jordan in 1970, when the Jordanian national movement and the Palestinian resistance threatened the Jordanian regime with failure, it was Israel on one hand and the US, Kissinger and Nixon, standing in operation rooms, being so worried that if Hussein falls, what are they going to do? So I really had very good reasons to hate. But today also is the anniversary of the liberation of Lebanon. "24 years ago, the Lebanese people, just like the Palestinians and just like the Vietnamese, small people, stood up and kicked out one of the strongest armies in the world. And forced the abrogation of the Surrender Normalization Treaty between Lebanon and Israel. This means that it can be done. This means that when we talk about optimism, it's not utopia, it's real. Lebanese people kicked out Israeli military. Israeli military had to withdraw, and that treatment was abrogated. So, for me, May 25th becomes an important day. Okay? And I think this is something that it is amazing to celebrate. And also, we remember that 2005, Israel had to withdraw from Gaza. So I think it's really important for us to remember not the bigger victories, the smaller victories, and also to believe in ourselves. Two, what is the relationship between Zionism and the US? I don't really think that Israel is serving the US or the US is serving Israel. I don't think either it's no longer, it's not even junior partner anymore. Israel used to be, and we used to analyze Palestinian left that Israel was a junior partner. It's no longer a junior partner. Israel is a partner. And Israel wields a lot of power and so on. But part of it, in addition to what my comrades have spoken, Richard and Sarah, I want to also add the ways in which we are talking about two settler colonial regimes that have a lot in common in terms of questions of values, in terms of the way they see people in the third world, in terms of their inability and unwillingness to accept anybody fighting for their self-determination. You're not allowed. Just don't dare do that. And this is why also Zionist movement has all historically been supported by British colonialism, French colonialism, all forces of colonialism around the world. It's classical colonialism and settler colonialism, very much part of it, and Israel falls right part in there, including the ways in which they employ the civilizational discourse, including the way that they attack all our people about being savages, barbarians, and bloodthirsty, including the ways that they have this gender discourse against Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian, all men of color, by the way. Historically, we are in Detroit, right? So let's think about Rashida Tlaib said, this is the blackest city in the country. Let's remember also the history of slavery. Let's remember the history of indigenous people. How is it that always men of color, indigenous men, Arab, Palestinian, Muslim, all men of the third world are always constructed as bloodthirsty, as vicious terrorists, as irrational, do not know what they want to do, and the women are constructed as docile, walking behind them, have no brains. We know that this convention, at the very least, proves otherwise. So there are very joint values between the two. I want to only a few historical facts to add to what my comrades have spoken, is that Richard spoke about the Sykes-Picot Agreement. And the way we found out about the Sykes-Picot Agreement was because the Russian Revolution, October Revolution, not Russian Revolution, October Revolution, with the leadership of Lenin, opened the vaults, the secret vaults of the Tsar, and found the Sykes-Picot Agreement. And the Arabs realized that actually France and Britain were lying to them about supporting their independence because they planned to chop up the region. And when Balfour Declaration a few days later happened, because it was October 25th, according to Gregorian calendar, 1917, Balfour, November 2nd, 1917, people rose up in Palestine. Before, they didn't really have much cause to worry about immigration because all the world was always immigrating. People were always moving. Borders were not as colonially rigid as they are today and so on. So, but what happened then, and it's really also very instructive, is that as a result of the nascent revolution standing up, sanctions were imposed on it by the European powers. And people might not even know that. Actually, it's a good thing to kind of think about that. I want to also speak about some of the history. I spoke about Jordan, but I also want to talk about the ways in which US intervened in Lebanon. In 1958, the US Navy came in because the workers in Lebanon were threatening the possibility of challenging the older constitution that was left by French colonialism, 1943, that was a very sectarian colonialism. In 1958 also, in many Arab countries, there were elections, and for example, in Jordan, Slimane al-Nabilsi government was elected, and of course this was not allowed. The Jordanian government went to the streets, and one of the martyrs was Raja Abu Amasha, a young school teacher, a school child, Palestinian. And this was also very much part and parcel of something called the Baghdad Pact, in which colonial powers were trying to once again enlist Arab colonized rulers to participate in the designs of colonialism. So I'm talking about also imperialism, not just US imperialism, because if we are going to follow Lenin, some who do, we know that imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism, right? And the interest of oil in the region and the discovery of oil and the exploitation of the region all of a sudden becomes really interesting, why the US becomes also even more involved than anyone else. But also going back to the whole idea of self-determination. Why was the trilateral aggression against Egypt carried out? Because Jamal Abdel Nasser dared to nationalize the Suez Canal, because the Suez Canal, we do not know, belongs to the British. It just happens to be in our region. He nationalized it, and he had to be punished by it. He closed the Tiran Straits. And just think about, fast forward, this is not our topic, but think about what's happening today in the Red Sea and the ways in which another country in the region is actually practicing boycott, divestment, and sanctions and preventing ships going to Israel from going forward. Long live Yemen. In the 70s also, the US, Israel, and the old regime of the Shah collaborated together to crush rising revolutions in Oman, in Bahrain, in Dhofar. They always tell us that we don't have revolution. Remember after 9/11, 2001, they came to us and they said, we need to have the birth pangs of the Middle East. We need to remake the region and so on. You need to democratize. Every single time we had the movement, you crushed it. And I think it's really important to, and I'm saying this is because I think it's really important for us to go back and learn that history or relearn that history. Dig out the old. Today I was very happy with all the songs because they reminded me of my youth and going and all the songs that you were playing, I know every single word. So it's really important to do that. At what Muhammad was saying, the importance of the songs and culture is very, very important because it reminded us, and I don't have time to go into it. If somebody asks me, I can explain that some of the songs, each one was from different faction. And each one of them had different allegiances and alliances, which was in itself very interesting for Palestine. But just two more points left. Is the question is about why did the US go to the region after they were involved in Vietnam? We know that US solicited Moshe Dayan after 67 to go and advise them in Vietnam. But the US after 67 decided that Vietnam is not worth continuing in it, that it was the US ruling classes. And they decided to get out of Vietnam because they thought this region is more important, more strategic. There are more things that happen in it. And the victory of Israel over 3 Arab countries in the 1967 occupation, and please do not use Six-Day War, because if you do use Six-Day War, it's a Zionist expression intended to say, see, we won over them in 6 days. So let's not try to reproduce that language. So this is why there was shift in the US from Vietnam, not now. That is not the only reason, and people have emphasized it. The strength of Vietnamese people and their willingness, just like the people in Gaza today, to stand up to the strongest force on earth and fight, along with the solidarity movement that was rising around the world. That's what made the victory happen. And I want to hear, I would be remiss if I don't mention the martyr Aaron Bushnell, who martyr for Palestine, right? Who actually made it very clear and prevented anybody in colonialist circles to misread what he did and what he wanted, to kind of try to mess it up. He wrote everything. He chanted. He did his journal in Facebook and so on. Okay, so the final point is that in the 70s, there were a lot of resistance in Gaza, and I want to mention it because nobody said it today, that was led by somebody called Guevara Gaza, Mahmoud al-Aswad. And Guevara Gaza was able, Israel themselves said that he controlled Gaza during the day, and Israel controlled it during the day, he controlled it during the night. And the tactics that he was using are very similar to the tactics that are being used today by the resistance. I am not saying that the resistance today is derivative. And I'm not saying that people who are resisting today are just a carbon copy. I am saying that there is continuity in understanding the struggle that people have historically resisted. And every time they resisted, they got crushed because the powers that be were not going to allow us to engage in self-determination. So I want to leave you with one question for people who are leftists here. The resistance today is led by Islamist groups. It was mentioned briefly, led by Islamist groups. In the 70s and before the success of the Iranian Revolution and the US choosing Islam to be its enemy, the leftist movements were actually on a roll, and continue, by the way. In Palestine, there are many groups, PFLP mostly, but there's also other groups, DFLP and so on, are participating in the resistance along with Islamic Jihad and Hamas. But it is really mostly the Islamist groups that are leading. If we are able to understand that in the 70s and appreciate and support groups that were leftist, that had their own convictions about resistance, whether you agreed with everything they had or not, is it so hard today to support and not to say but? We support but. And I'm not suggesting to anybody, you don't have to agree with all the social programs and so on. It's not about that. It's about really having trust and faith in a movement and in a people who are able to fight for themselves, lead their own movement, and achieve victories after over 8 months with very small weapons. And I'm sure they're going to hate me when I say small weapons. But this is a people who are intending to fight. They intend to stay strong. They intend to defeat not only the Israeli mighty army, but US imperialism itself. In order for us to be able to shake And in order for us to think about that, we really need to step aside, back, think, sit with the idea that if we are able to accept maybe people who might not agree with us and so on, do we want to every single day second guess a liberation movement, just like the Algerian liberation movement, which was led also by Islamists, by the way. The Communist Party in Algeria played very, very little role. Unfortunately, we wish they did, but they didn't. But today, this is what's happening. And what's happening today, actually, is all the Palestinian resistance groups are coming together. They are coming together, they're negotiating, they're sending messages to the whole world. They are actually being very measured in their response to the genocide that's going on. I think we need to be fully supportive with the resistance and stand by it so we can achieve the victory we want. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rabab. Not only giving us a clarity of analysis, but also showing us how we need to study history and how we can use history to better understand the current moment. And last but not least, I would like to introduce Yara Shufani.
So Rabab talked really perfectly about the liberation, really perfectly in general, but about the liberation of Lebanon, of South Lebanon. And one of the things that I think is important to mention today in particular is, the way in which what the liberation of South Lebanon really meant to our people. One of my grandparents is actually from a Lebanese village called Deir Mimas, right on the border in the south. And, another really important person is from this village, and her name is Suhab Shara. And Suhab Shara was a member of the Lebanese Communist Party who unsuccessfully attempted to assassinate someone, a war criminal, by the name of Antoine Lahad, who was then leading the South Lebanese militias, the SLA. And then she was held and arrested and held and tortured and detained for 10 years in a prison called Khiam prison in South Lebanon. And so when the South was liberated, the prison doors were open. And I think that that's also such an important part of our struggle and how we think about liberation, particularly today when we just welcomed Sanat Dakka here, who, really shows us the centrality of the prisoner's struggle. And so when we defeat imperialism, which we will, our prisoners will be liberated. So I think one of the most common misconceptions is actually the question of imperialism. Oftentimes, imperialism is understood in a really incorrect way, like it's just, a large or powerful state that has power over or invades a smaller state, usually through war or military intervention. But I think what's important is I'd like to try to offer a different understanding of imperialism, which explains it as a global system rather than as a singular act or behavior. And I think that this global system is important to understand as a form of capitalist development on a world scale. And so in understanding imperialism as a global system, one specifically that is led by the United States, we are in the era of US-led imperialism, and formerly we were in the era of British-led imperialism. Through that, we're able to understand the US's role in Palestine as structural, which can allow for us to shatter ideas of reform, reforming the US empire, because actually the US's role is quite structural. So Samir Amin, who is a brilliant Egyptian scholar, made the argument that imperialism walks with two legs. It stands on two legs. The first is the economic leg, and the second is the political leg. And the economic leg is basically operates through things like blockade, sanctions, financial dependency, things that lead to also political dependency, and building an exclusive economic policy. And the political leg is the continuous interventions and wars against all those who dare stand up against imperialism. And I think using Samir Amin, it's actually quite interesting to think about the question of US imperialism in Palestine. And I want to look at a specific case, which is the case of the Oslo Accords, through the question of the economic leg and the political leg. So many of you here are likely familiar with the Oslo Accords. For a lot of us as Palestinians, the Oslo Accords represented really treason, the abandonment of, or the betrayal of our struggle. And it was at a point when the Palestinian resistance and revolution was heightened. And we've seen time and time again in revolutionary moments that scare the ruling class and the imperialists. They look for ways to destroy our resistance, and sometimes that's through violence, military violence, to attempt to crush our resistance, and other times it's through attempting to create political solutions that will undermine our people's struggle. And one of the most egregious examples of this was after the first Intifada, when the power of our resistance was so clear and terrified not only the Zionist entity, but also the US. And so they tried to undercut the power of our resistance by going the route of normalization and negotiation. And Oslo, the Oslo Accords, which were signed in 1993, essentially was a acceptance of a two-state quote-unquote solution, abandoning arms and basically coming to the bargaining table. This idea that if the Palestinians just put down our arms and negotiate, that we could get something called statehood. And at the center of Oslo was this attempt to liquidate the Palestinian national question, because it is the national question that threatens imperialism the most, and liquidate the Palestinian resistance. The Oslo Accords fragmented Palestine, split up the West Bank, criminalized militancy and revolution. And central to the Oslo Accords was the United States. The United States was central to the mediation of the Oslo Accords and orchestrating the negotiations. And this was during a time of Soviet decline, particularly during the period of the Madrid Conference. And the US was trying to consolidate a particular world order. The element of trade and opening up the West Bank to free trade agreements was central to the Oslo Accords, and this was in line with how the United States was moving across the entire global South to build NGOs and develop economic ties with and expand economically into nations in the global South in order to basically de-develop or build relationships of unequal development with the global South. And today, the US continues to present itself, of course, as a broker of peace and a two-state solution. You know, we continue to hear the language of two-state solution. But of course, we know that now, decades later, that the two-state solution was always an attempt to destroy the Palestinian resistance. An unsuccessful attempt, as we know today. And so the economic leg of Oslo was, of course, the economic subjugation of the Palestinian nation as the economy of the West Bank was folded into the Zionist economy. And this was particularly crushing at the time following the first Intifada, when Palestinian revolution had basically built alternative economic systems in order to fuel the revolution through boycotting or strikes and refusing to pay taxes and so on, where the economy was actually going to drive forward revolution. And there was this shift that took place during Oslo. Oslo advanced the idea of an economic peace, which focused on the economic growth of the private sector, the idea that if Palestinians could just grow their private sector, this could lead them to sovereignty. But of course, this never actually took place. There was no growth or economic growth. There was unequal development that served the Zionist entity and US empire. And then, of course, with Oslo, we saw NGOization, the building of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, the destruction of what was formerly understood as like Palestinian civil society, and the replacing of Palestinian civil society with NGOs. And this transformed mass movements like unions as well, like attacked unions and popular institutions, and shifted towards a society that was heavily reliant on NGOs. And then there's the political leg, which we see through the Oslo Accords. And this can be best, I think, exemplified through the development of the Palestinian Authority and their security forces. The role that the Palestinian Authority security forces play in facilitating Zionism and imperialism is clear and has been clear for decades. And it's been clear for the last 8 months that while resistance in Gaza is fighting and delivering blows to Zionism and imperialism, the Palestinian Authority security forces are continuing to engage in security collaboration and rounding up prisoners day by day in service of the Zionist state. The United States played a critical role in forming the Palestinian security apparatus. And an important person to note here is Lieutenant General Keith Dayton, who formally trained the Palestinian security forces, and he actually spoke about it in terms of creating a new Palestinian. And he said that this new Palestinian was meant to replace the old Palestinian being the Palestinian that resists, the Fida'i. And the new Palestinian's role was to do two things: to protect the Zionist state and to be the civil administrative arm of the occupation. And so this project was brought to life by the United States empire. And we see the way in which the way that the development of Palestinian security collaboration directly undermines Palestinian resistance, whether it be through the revolutionary martyr Bassel al-Araj, who was discussed earlier this morning, who was tortured by the Palestinian Authority security forces, or the martyr Nizar Banat, who was martyred by the Palestinian Authority just a few years ago. But I think what's important to note here is that the resistance that we've been seeing in Palestine, particularly in the north, in places like Jenin and Tulkarem and Nablus, in some ways actually demonstrates the inability of the security coordination project, because a lot of the resistance groups that we are seeing rise up actually have, a direct correlation to formerly being within the Palestinian Authority. And so this project has had damning implications for the Palestinian people, but ultimately it has failed. A few other really quick points I want to mention. The first is just that the role of imperialism on the question of blockade. The blockade on Gaza is also a form of US-backed imperialism. And the blockade needs to be understood as what happens when empire doesn't get its way, is unable to achieve the political outcome that it desires, right? Like the one that it was able to achieve in the West Bank. And so through their inability to impose a political solution on the Gaza Strip, they de-developed the Palestinian economy in Gaza through blockade. And I think what's important to mention is that the resistance in the Gaza Strip, of course, the economic side of imperialism is very difficult to circumvent when you're being blockaded by air, land, and sea, but they were able to circumvent the military side or the military leg of imperialism through building tunnels underneath the land. And I think it's important to tie this even further to the role that the United States plays now. Of course, we know that the United States continues to give financial support to the Zionist entity, approving just recently $26 billion, effectively rewarding the Zionist state for 8 months of genocide. There is the diplomatic support or diplomatic cover that the Zionist entity, or that the United States gives the Zionist entity, and we see this clearly through the ICJ ruling, where the US refuses to respect the conclusion of the ICJ ruling, and actually in this refusal has delegitimized the very international institutions that just last year the United States was relying on in their attack on, or their vilification of Russia. And of course, we know that the UN resolutions, the continued voting or against UN resolutions for a ceasefire, and so the US has time and time again given diplomatic cover to the Zionist entity. The US continues to advance normalization as a project, and we need to understand normalization in a really clear way, that the goal of normalization is to isolate the Palestinian struggle from the Arab world. And the United States has tried to advance the Abraham Accords and has tried to is now trying to negotiate for Saudi Zionist normalization. In the last few months, we've seen the United States play a clear role in undermining Palestinian resistance and the axis of resistance more broadly, and we saw this clearly through the alliance that they built in January alongside Australia, Canada, the Netherlands, and others in order to oppose Yemen and Ansar Allah's intervention of boats destined for the Zionist entity in the Red Sea. And the United States has launched air and missile strikes using US aircraft, ships, and submarines against Yemen and the Yemeni people. And this is after the US led and backed a decade-long blockade against Yemen. And the last thing that's important to note is that these lessons and these realities are things we need to be cognizant of when we look to the future and the possible role that the United States may play in the rebuilding project of Gaza under the guise of humanitarian aid. And we've already seen this in, for example, the way that US agencies like the World Central Kitchen are starting to enter Gaza, and the US is trying to displace UNRWA. And so there is, as well as with the construction of the pier, the discussions around who will control the Rafah border, these are all indications and warning signs to us that the US may try to impose a political solution on Gaza. And of course, we know that the United States is also trying to destroy Palestinian revolution, not only in Palestine, but also here. We have seen police repression, we have seen surveillance. I mean, we had visas just for a conference, this conference, we had visas denied for speakers. And so we know that US empire is trying to actively intervene against our organizations, against our movements. And this attempt to crush Palestinian revolution here actually should tell us just how powerful we are and just how much we scare them, because Palestinian revolution the Palestinian revolution is a gateway to struggle, and it radicalizes us and it shows us clearly who our enemies are. We have comrades in the movement who a year ago may have had illusions about reforming US empire, and today, through the Palestinian revolution, see clearly that there is no reforming the US empire. But just to end on a couple of notes, that although this relationship is structural, it doesn't mean that these the two legs of imperialism, are rigid. In fact, in this moment, they are shaking. Our organizing can bring imperialism into crisis, and our organizing is bringing imperialism into crisis. We are playing a critical role in heightening the contradictions here and creating tensions between US empire and Zionism. And we saw this just a few months ago when Netanyahu was quoted saying in a private meeting, "We need 3 things from the US, munitions, munitions, and munitions." He says, "There are huge demonstrations in Western capitals. We need to apply counter pressure. There have been disagreements with the best of our friends." This proves that the mass movement that we are building is a mass movement that is capable of shaking US empire and the relationship between US empire and Zionism. And in fact, the Biden administration has warned Netanyahu that that the U.S. can only hold out against the weight of, quote, global opinion for a limited period of time. And so we are applying pressure, and we need to continue to apply pressure. The impacts of Oslo have made their way here to the diaspora, as have the impacts of Zionism, and we need to be organizing regularly and consistently in a long-term way. We need to rebuild institutions, because the institutions that the Oslo Accords destroyed were not only in Palestine, they were also here. And so by building mass movements, by building political organizations, we are combating the legacy of Oslo, and we are putting forward a path of Palestinian revolution. I want to close with a quote that actually is on one of the columns in the vendor section by Ghassan Kanafani, who says, "Imperialism has laid its body over the world, the head in Eastern Asia, the heart in the Middle East, its arteries reaching Africa and Latin America. Wherever you strike it, you damage it, and you serve the world revolution." So, while it is important that we strike it wherever it exists, it is imperative that we strike it from within.
Thank you, Yara. I think Yara has left us with our task very clear. And I hope that this conversation is an invitation to continue investigating not only Zionism and its project of occupation and genocide, but the project of US imperialism, which is the shared enemy of all oppressed people across the globe, and what we can do here in the core of US imperialism to join the millions on every continent who have taken up this fight. Today, Sanat Daqqa, Milad, the memory of Walid Daqqa, oriented us and reminded us that we have 2 options, either victory or death. There is no in between. There can be no mistake that US imperialism and Zionism represent a project of death. And the people, those of us in this room, the mass movement for Palestine, the billions across the globe who share this vision, we represent a project of victory. So we are committed to studying, we are committed to struggling, we are committed to organizing together, and we will see our project of victory through until the end. I want to say thank you again to all of our incredible speakers. Thank you to all of you for being with us for this discussion. And I know that we'll continue to be together, to exchange, to learn in all the sessions that are to come. Thank you, everyone.
Free, free? Free, free? Free, free? Okay, can I get everyone's attention for a second? How's everyone feeling? It's the end of day 2. Are you all feeling energized for the cultural night? Okay, we will be starting our cultural night in 10 minutes, so please be back here by then. How's everyone feeling? Are you ready for some Palestinian song and culture? Okay, I'm gonna ask you all to please call everybody you know who wants to be here so we can get started as soon as possible. For the people in the back, if you can start shuffling into your seats. Thank you. All right, everyone. I see a lot of people still outside. We're gonna be closing the doors shortly, so if you want your friends here, please call them and tell them to come inside. Can I ask people in the back, I see you all, to shuffle in, take your seats. I see a lot of people outside the room. If you're coming in, please take your seats. Intifada revolution. Okay. For the people in the back, can you take your seats quickly, please? Okay, you all made it to almost the end of the second day of the People's Conference for Palestine. Today we have heard from amazing panelists, and now we're going to move into the Palestinian cultural night named Tallet al-Barude. This is in reference to a song that was written about the 1936-1939 Great Peasant Revolution in Palestine. And we have a long history in our liberation struggle of using music and song as a way to preserve our national identity. We have been always producing song to honor important historic acts of resistance, to honor our different martyrs and their story, and to keep the revolutionary spirit of our people alive. Palestinians worldwide have produced revolutionary music that nourishes us, and we are honored to be surrounded by that very music tonight that tells the story of a people fighting for justice. I want you all to put your hands together for Nasim Al-Atrash and Sana Musa. Nasim Al-Atrash is a Grammy-nominated Palestinian cellist, composer, and educator. He is currently on tour with the Grammy-winning ensemble Turtle Island Quartet and jazz master Terence Blanchard. He is also a professor at Berklee College of Music and the director of the Arab Music Ensemble at Tufts University. He performed at international venues including Kennedy Center, Lincoln Center, and the Royal Opera of Oman, Monetary Jazz Festival, Newport Jazz Festival, and many others. Give it up to him. Sana Musa is a Palestinian vocalist, composer, and researcher in Palestinian folk music, whose music is influenced by the collective memory of the Palestinian people. Through her research, she has revolutionized Palestinian folk music, specifically fresh and innovative aspects that have never been accomplished before. Today, she is considered one of the most significant Palestinian voices in the Palestinian folk music genre, and she has represented Palestine in various important theaters around the world. Renowned worldwide for the multiple prestigious awards, this amazing artist and doctorate of neuroscience has successfully combined her art with her accomplishments in the neuroscience field. Please put your hands together and help me in welcoming all the way from Al Jalil, Palestine, Sana Musa.
صوتك يا شعبي أغنية تمضي تخفو في بيت تستيقظ في بيت لحن لا يذوي صوتك يا شعبي ينبت سوسنة في الصخر صوتك يا شعبي لحن لا يذوي ينبت سوسنة في الصخر صوتك يا شعبي لحن لا يذوي ينبت سوسنة في الصخر مهما طال عمر الليل حتما سنغزل منه خيوط الشمس انفض يا شعبي ركام الموت حي يا شعبي حي أنت انفض يا شعبي ركام الموت حي يا شعبي حي أنت
لن تكسروا أعناقنا لن تهزموا أسواقنا نحن القضاء المبرم.
Esa proclama es patria o muerte.
Our primary task remains to unite our people.
إننا لمنتصرون لأن إرادتنا من إرادة الله وإرادة الله لا تقر.
حي يا شعبي يا شعبي حي حي يا شعبي حي
شعبي يا شعبي حي حي يا شعبي حي حي أنت
يدك المرفوعة في وجه الظالم قاومت قاوم قاوم قاوم
يدك المرفوعة في وجه الظالم قاومت قاوم 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 حي يا شعبي
حي يا شعبي حي يا شعبي
Please put your hands together for Nasim Al-Atrash and Sana Musa.
يا الله ما أحلاكم. مساء الخير، مساء فلسطين، مساء الشباب الثائر. حبايبي هالقد سعيدة أكون بينكم، جدا جدا سعيدة أكون بينكم. I'm so proud of you, all of you. عن جد شكرا شكرا شو كنتوا عم تعملوا، شو عم بتقدموا، أعطيتونا الروح. كنا محتاجين نتواصل معكم ونشوفكم، انتوا الروح اللي إلنا، فشكرا.
Hello, yes. I'm going to try to translate a little bit of what Sana said, even though most of you, I imagine, understand already. But she's saying that she's proud of you. You gave us the spirit. You are the spirit. We are so proud of you. And thank you for listening to us today.
نسيم هالقد صعب انه نقدم موسيقى بهاي الظروف زي ما كلكم بتعرفوا.
It's very difficult to play music or perform these days, as you might know.
غزة عم تذبح امامنا، وغزة اللي هي قلبنا عم تنزف الآن بهاي اللحظات. بس الفن ولا مرة كان شيء إضافي. الفن الملتزم، الفن الحامل للمعرفة، كل حياته كان جزء من المقاومة.
Gaza right now is being massacred. Gaza is bleeding. But art was never something extra that we do only when we're happy. Or art is part of the resilience, is part of the resistance.
حنقدم مجموعة من الأغاني الفلسطينية، وحتشوفوا إنه حتى الأغاني البسيطة، تسمعوا أغنية تهليلي It's just a lullaby، بتسمعوا كلماتها، بتفكروا إنه الأم عم بتنيم طفلها وعم تحكي مع طفلها. إذا بتقرأوا الكلمات بطريقة أعمق بتكتشفوا إنه في معلومات أخرى مخبأة بهاي الأغنية. بتكتشفوا إنه السيدة هاي عم تحكي مع زوجها الثائر اللي دايماً بيفارق البيت الصبح، فرح تسمعوا كتير: يا خيط الصبح يا مفرق الخلان، يا نور الصبح يا مفرق الخلان. هي عم تحكي مع زوجها الثائر اللي اضطر يطلع من البيت قبل ما يتم القبض عليه. زي ما دايما بيصير، بيجوا بياخدوا أحلى الشباب وجه الصبح وهن نايمين. فعشان هيك كل أغنية رح نقدمها رح نحكي عنها فقرة صغيرة، بس تحكي عن أهميتها في تكوين ذاكرتنا الجمعية. سوري نسيم.
I'm going to try to. No, it's great. So even the most simple folk Palestinian songs, if you listen to the first layer, when you listen to the lyrics, you might think it's just a lullaby, a mother singing to her baby, putting them to sleep. But as you look further into the lyrics and try to understand, you realize that there's a much deeper meaning, hidden meaning behind the lyrics. She's talking to her husband who left early morning, a revolutionist who's going out there risking his life, maybe going to prison like what's happening right now to many of our young fathers. I think that's, I don't know if I forgot anything.
معلش عن جد. He's doing very well عن جد.
Thank you. Thank you.
So الأغاني تبعتنا هي عبارة عن أركايف، هي عبارة عن أرشيف يوثق فترات مختلفة من حياتنا كفلسطينيين. فكتير مهم إنه نسمع أغانينا الفلسطينية بقلبنا وبداننا وبعقلنا ونفهم بالضبط شو مخبى فيها. تعالوا نروح على هاي الرحلة مع سوا بعض.
So music, Palestinian folk music is an archive that keeps track of the different eras of Palestinian life. So come with us, let's take a journey together from Palestine, from the past to the present.
يا خيط الصبح يا مفرق بيني وبينه عينه ملاني نوم عينه يا خيط الصبح يا مفرق الخلان يا ريت الصبح لا شجر ولا بان يا خيط الصبح يا خيط الصبح يا خيط الصبح يا مفرق الخلان يا ريت الصبح يا ريت الصبح شقشق ولا بان يا خات الصبح يا خات الصبح يا خات الصبح يا مفرق الخلان يا ريت الصبح يا ريت الصبح يا ريت الصبح لا شقشق ولا بان عينه ملاني نوم عينه يما مويلي الهوى يما مويلي ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم الناذل فيا يما مويلي يا لا لا ومشيت تحت الشتاء والشتاء رواني ومشيت تحت الشتاء والشتاء رواني والصيف لما نجا ولع من نيراني بيضل عمر فتى نذر للحرية يما مويل الهوى يما مويلي ضرب شعبي يا بطل بفديك بعينيا يما ويل الهوى يما ويليا ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم النذل فيا يما ويل الهوى يما ويليا ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم النذل فيا ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم النذل فيا على فكرة يعني عن جد هالقد حلو انكم كمان جزء من العرض. هالقد انا سعيده انكم جزء من العرض وخليكم معنا دايما جد. احنا عاده فرقتنا اكبر بكثير من هيك بس معاكم حاسين انه كل الانسامبل موجود فشكرا.
It's true that we are only two people, but with you we feel like this huge orchestra. Thank you so much for joining in. We love it. Yeah.
عشان أنا متأكدة إنه كلنا حابين نرجع على فلسطين وعشان اللي بالشتات واللي بمخيمات اللجوء كل يوم بيحلموا يكونوا بفلسطين. بحب أقول لكم إنه إحنا كمان اللي جوا فلسطين بنحلم ترجع فلسطين.
I know that many of you want to go back to Palestine, want to be in Palestine. But I want to tell you that the ones of us who are in Palestine also want Palestine to come back.
وغابت لنا الشمس غابت وغابت لنا الشمس يا بنت شعلان وريد اروح على بلادي قلبي من شوقي لها انقطع ودينا اشوف احبابي ولي هدي يا بحر هدي طولنا بغيبتنا ودي سلامي ودي للأرض اللي ربتنا طولنا في غيبتنا سلم لي على بلادي تربة بي وجدادي سلم لي على بلادي تربة بي وجدادي وبعد الشحرور الشادي بيغرد لعودتنا هدي يا بحر هدي طولنا في غيبتنا سلم لي علموني وأهلي ربوني سلم لي علموني وأهلي ربوني وبعد أمي الحنوني بتشمشم بمخدتنا هدي يا بحر هدي طولنا بغيبتنا ودي سلامي ودي للأرض اللي ربتنا بعض الأغاني اللي بيغنوها النساء بيكون فيها رسائل للثوار ومن هذا المحل زي من كل محل بالعالم نبعث رسالة لأسران البواسل في سجون الاحتلال اللي قدموا عمرهم مهر لحب فلسطين. هاي الأغنية الأمهات بيحكوا فيها بلغة خاصة احنا بنسميها ملالا لأنه فيها لام، حرف اللام ألف لام واو. الفكرة تبعتها إنه هاي الترويدة تكون صعبة الفهم حتى اللي ما بيتقن اللغة العربية، المقصود هون بالاحتلال البريطاني في أرض فلسطين، ما يفهموا شو إحنا عم نحكي. أهل البلد الأصليين موجودة بأكثر من تراث في العالم، مش بس بالتراث الفلسطيني، بس بفلسطين اسمها التراويد المشفرة الملالة. سوري.
No worries. So Al-Mulala is an encrypted language that the Palestinian women used during the time of the British mandate to be able to send messages to the resistance. And the language works by adding syllables that are not part of, adding extra syllables to the word so that the British would not understand what message these women were bringing to the prisoners, the Palestinian prisoners in the British prisons. So we dedicate this piece to all our Palestinian prisoners in Israeli prisons.
أول من غنى هذا القالب الغنائي هي الرائعة الراحلة اللي بعدها عايشة بقلوبنا، ريم بنا يا طالعين على الجبل.
Our dear Reem Banna was the first singer to sing this song.
And this genre
And this specific genre as well.
She was the first one to introduce such a tarwida.
You have amazing English, so I think isn't her English great? So I guess you should, should go for it.
Thank you for encouraging me, but I have a very heavy, Thank you عن جد شكرا والله شكرا. So it's a very unique genre actually, which is called mulala, which is named mulala or التراويد المشفرة, enciphered songs. وهذه الأغاني, these songs as I said before, أنت اللي قلت مش أنا. So as Nasim said before, إنه فيهم مقطع من اللام ألف أو لام واو وظيفتهم يصعب الفهم. هذه الأغنية اللي أنا بدي أغنيها هي واحدة من أسهل الأغاني تبعت الملالة. في أغاني أنا بقول لكم زي شمالالي، تعرفوها ترويدة شمالي، شمالالي يا الله، كتير يعني باخذ وقت لحتى قدرنا نركز بكلماتها. هاي من التراويد المشفرة البسيطة. إلا الغزال الذي لكم جوا محبوس إلا الغزال الذي لكم جوا محبوس يا طالعين عن الأمل يا والموقدين النار بين الأيام اليمن عين الهنا يا روح يا طالعين عن الجبل يا والموقدين النار بين اليمن يمن عين الهنا يا روح. يس الرزنة تعرف نسيم الرزنة هي سفينة طلعت في بداية الثلاثينات وأغلب فلسطينية اللي طلعوا على الرزنة عاشوا في أمريكا الجنوبية بالأساس طلعت كتير فلسطينيين للعالم ومنها في أمريكا الجنوبية تحديداً فكتير بيتغنى للرزنة بفلسطين لأنه بتذكر بفترة معينة.
What I love about playing with Sana is that I learn a lot about Palestinian folk music and Palestinian history. So Rozana is a name of a ship that used to take people all the way to South America.
صح.
Yeah. I didn't know that before.
Yes. So اللي قلته أنا إنه خربطت. So اللي قلته أنا فعملياً هاي السفينة كانت تاخذ كتير من المهاجرين الفلسطينيين على أمريكا الجنوبية وبتحكي عن هاي الرحلة عملياً هاي الأغنية.
Most of the Palestinian refugees that were leaving and going to South America were leaving on the ship Rozana. So this song talks about that journey. Yeah. All right. Enjoy it.
بدك أحكي أكثر عنها بحكي عادي حسيته بده أحكي أكثر عنها صح لأنه هي اللي بتحكي يا رايحين على حلب مع أنها مش قصدها على حلب هي بتحكي يا رايحين حبي معاكم راح.
Those who are going away, my love to you is going away with you.
Yes. وهي بتتمنى إنه يرجع.
And she is hoping that this lover would come back, or family member maybe, loved one.
هيك تمام.
Great.
شكرا.
I'm ready.
عالروزانة كل الهنا فيها وش عملت الروزانة الله يجازيها عالروزانة كل الهنا فيها وش عملت الروزانة الله وش عملت الرزانة الله يجازيها عالرزانة عالرزانة كل هنا فيها وش عملت الرزانة الله يجازيها يا رايحين عحلب حبي معاكم راح يا محملين العنب تحت العنب تفاح كل من وليف ومعه وانا ولي في راح يا رب نسمة هوا ترد والف ليا عالرزانة وش عملت الرزانة يا رايحين عصافة صفوا ليلتكم ثلثين عمري قضى فيها وبنيتكم حلفتكم بالنبي ومنين ميتكم وميتنا عين العذراء شرب النصراوية عالرزانة عالرزانة كل هنا فيها وش عملت الرزانة الله يجازيها وش عملت الرزانة الله يجازيها الأغنية الجاي هي من فترة الاحتلال البريطاني بأرض فلسطين. النساء زي ما سمعتوا بالمقدمة كانوا يعملوا كل إشي عشان رجالهم يكونوا من أوائل الثوار، وكان في هناك عادة كانوا السيدات ينتظروا رجالهن لما يرجعوا من المعارك، فاللي كانت تشوف جوزها كانت تزغرد، واللي ما كانت تشوف جوزها وتشوف بارودته كانت تاخذ بارودته وتعطيها لابنه الكبير عشان يكمل مسيرة النضال. طلت البارودة والسبع ما طل.
So now I was saying that this song is also from the British Mandate time. And it talks about, it's called طلعت البارودة. Talks about women that would expect their husband to come back and would support their husband in the resistance. And sometimes the husband would come back and she would take the gun and clean it. And how do you say it, زغرت in English? You got it. Wow. Beautiful. And sometimes the husband would not come back. And in that case, she would take the gun and hand it to her oldest son. Okay, طلعت البارودة.
السلامة وين رايح مع السلامة وين رايح مع السلامة يا مسك فايح مع السلامة وين رايح مع السلامة يا مسك فايح مع السلامة وين بدك لقعد على دربك وردك طلات البارود والسبع ما طل يا بوز البارود من دمه مبتل طلات البارود والسبع ما جاش يا بوز البارود من دمه مرتاش طلت البارود ما طل ما بيني وبينك سلسلة وادي وإن رحت غادي يعز أحبابي ما بيني وبينك سلسلة وادي وإن رحت غادي يعز أحبابي طلت البارود يا ويل ما طل حمرا يا أصيلي وين رحت فين بباب السرايا يا ويلي بعلمي تركتي حمرا يا أصيلي وين رحت فين بباب السرايا يا ويلي بعلمي تركتي طلت البارود والسبع ما طل مع السلامة وين رايح مع السلامة يا مسفايح ورح نختم بإشي إلكم ولكل حدا يؤمن بالحرية.
We will end with a song for you and for everyone who believes in freedom.
شدوا الهم قوي مركب ينده عالحرية يا حرية هلا 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 شدوا الهم قوي مركب ينده عالحرية يا حرية هلا هلا خلف القلعة قلعة نحنا ساحات الدنيا مطرحنا يا بحرية هلا 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 شدوا الهم قوي مركب ينده عالحرية يا حرية هلا هلا شكرا. بدنا نشوفكم قريبا، وغزة حرة وفلسطين حرة. وخليكم دايما 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 على قيد الحب. شكرا نسيم. شكرا.
Thank you, everyone. I want to thank my dear friend Sana Musa, the amazing singer. And I want to also thank the entire team, Qusay, especially he and the summit. Yeah.
الصراحة معلش بدي أدعي كل اللي نظموا، كل الشباب الرائع اللي تعب، بدي تيجوا. أنا حابة أشكركم بشكل شخصي.
Please come on stage.
روان.
The entire team, روان.
قصي، روان، الصبايا والشباب، كلكم بوسة على المسرح، والله بوسة جد.
Abdullah, come on stage as well.
Dania, Laura, Hamad, Abdullah, everybody, please come up.
عن جد لازم نشكرهم، صارلهم بيشتغلوا كتير وقت، كل التفاصيل الصعبة تحديداً أنا عبد الله والصبايا والشباب. شكراً. طب أنا أحكي عنكم. لا دانيا. أنا بدي أشكر الناس اللي إجوا وكانوا معنا، واللي كانوا جزء من العرض وجزء من كل هذا المؤتمر المهم اللي عن جد بيعطينا الروح. أنت أكيد حبيبة تقولي لهم كمان إشي، صح؟
بدي أترجم اللي أنت قلتيه. She wants to thank you all for being part of this historic conference and for giving all of us the spirit that we need to keep going. شكراً.
وشكراً لكم أنتوا على كل الوقت والجهد. عن جد I know you have invested so much effort and time to make this إنه تعملوا هذا الإشي حقيقة، فشكراً كتير جد.
شكراً لك.
I also want to say that as I'm standing here, I've been in the US for 14 years. I never dreamed of a day where I would be standing with an audience with all the kofiyas and with this Palestinian flags. Really, yes, it's changing. And I know that the young people in Gaza, the kids in Gaza, they have hope because of you. They're waiting for your movement to end this genocide. So thank you.
Give it again for Sana.
Give it up for Nasim and Sana.